Hello and welcome to the Reading with Cari podcast. New episodes air every Wednesdays with special mini-sodes airing on Saturdays on any device you listen to podcasts. Click the link in the description to find the podcast now. Thank you and enjoy. Hello and welcome to Reading with Cari, a mindfulness podcast series that can be used as a sleep aid or to ease your anxiety and relieve your stress. I am your host, Cari Favole, and I am so thankful that you've decided to spend some time with me. Since this podcast tries to be inclusive and welcomes all aspects of positivity, I wanted to speak a little about Ramadan. Now, I totally missed it this year. It was from April 12th to May 11th. Sometimes it does fall alongside the other holidays in December, though, and since it does center around reflection and community, among other things, I felt it might be approved if I were to mention it now as we go into the new year. The information was obtained through the Wikipedia page on Ramadan, link in the description. But first, as always, let's start with a brief breathing exercise. This exercise is a mindful emotional state of happiness. So first, we're going to focus on our breathing. And without changing it, let it naturally, organically come. Nice deep breathing in, but don't force it. Deep breathing out. We're just trying to get our relaxation kind of flowing. Now put your feet on the ground or whatever surface you're resting on and gently push onto the floor or onto the bedding. Press and notice the sensations on the bottoms of your feet, touching the surface. Just be in the moment. If you're pushing, you might even begin feeling a pulse in your toes or your feet. Deep breathing in, hold it for a moment and exhale out. Deep breath in, deep breath out. And now, while you're still kind of focusing on your breathing, consider where happiness comes from for you. Does happiness come from your heart, or your mind, or maybe your belly? Where does it come from for you? Discover where the idea of happiness comes from and focus on that area, whatever happiness means to you. Maybe a smile or an energy that runs through your body. Or maybe happiness is relaxing the muscles in your shoulders. Expand now wider and wider and let the feeling of the happiness flow through your body. Just feel more and more happy. Maybe wiggle your body. Maybe tense a muscle and then relax it. You'll tense on an inhale, hold the tension, and relax the tension as you exhale. And you can move through your whole body that way, especially if you're feeling tension somewhere specific, like your shoulders. Just feel more and more happy. And allow yourself only to focus on this and be happy. Remember what this feeling of happiness feels like. You can have this feeling of happiness whenever you choose, just by being in this moment. This feeling of happiness can take over your mind and your body and your soul and your whole spirit. Really feel the happiness, the contentment, the relaxation. Now slowly open your eyes and just be in the moment of happiness. Just be. Just be. And as always, I like to indulge in a nice, happy sigh. Let's slowly take a nice deep inhale and sigh. Congratulations, you finished this exercise. And now let's learn about Ramadan. Ramadan is the 9th month of the Islamic calendar, observed by Muslims worldwide as a month of fasting, prayer, reflection, and community. A commemoration of Muhammad's first revelation, the annual observance of Ramadan is regarded as one of the 5 pillars of Islam and lasts 29 to 30 days, from one sighting of the crescent moon to the next. Fasting from sunrise to sunset is mandatory for all adult Muslims who are not acutely or chronically ill, traveling, elderly, breastfeeding, diabetic, or interestingly enough, menstruating. The pre-dawn meal is referred to as suhur, and the nightly feast that breaks the fast is called iftar. Although fatwas have been issued declaring that Muslims who live in regions with a midnight sun or polar night should follow the timetable of Mecca, it is common practice to follow the timetable of the closest country in which night can be distinguished from day. In other words, the length of the dawn to sunset time varies in different parts of the world according to summer or winter solstices of the sun. I've gone over the winter solstice in an earlier podcast if you'd like to learn more. Most Muslims fast for 11 to 16 hours during Ramadan. However, in polar regions, the period between dawn and sunset may exceed 22 hours in summer. For example, in 2014, Muslims in Reykjavik, Iceland, and Trondheim, Norway, fasted almost 22 hours, while Muslims in Sydney, Australia, fasted for only about 11 hours. In areas characterized by continuous night or day, some Muslims follow the fasting schedule observed in the nearest city that experiences sunrise and sunset, while others follow Mecca time. The spiritual rewards of fasting are believed to be multiplied during Ramadan. Accordingly, Muslims refrain not only from food and drink, but also tobacco products, sexual relations, and sinful behavior, devoting themselves instead to prayer and recitation of the Quran. The word Ramadan comes from the Arabic root for scorching heat and is one of the names of God in Islam. Muslims hold that all scripture was revealed during Ramadan. The scrolls of Abraham, Torah, Psalms, Gospel, and Quran having been handed down on the 1st, 6th, 12th, 13th, in some sources 18th, and 24th Ramadans respectively. Muhammad is said to have received his first Quranic revelation on Laylat al-Qadr, one of the 5 odd-numbered nights that fall during the last 10 days of Ramadan. Although Muslims were first commanded to fast in the 2nd year of Hijra, 624 CE, they believe that the practice of fasting is not in fact an innovation of monotheism, but rather has always been necessary for believers to attain taqwa, the fear of God. They point to the fact that the pre-Islamic pagans of Mecca fasted on the 10th day of Muharram to expiate sin and avoid drought. The first and last dates of Ramadan are determined by the lunar Islamic calendar. Because Hilal, the crescent moon, typically occurs approximately 1 day after the new moon, Muslims can usually estimate the beginning of Ramadan. Laylat al-Qadr is considered the holiest night of the year. It is generally believed to have occurred on an odd-numbered night during the last 10 days of Ramadan. The Dawoodi Bohra believe that Laylat al-Qadr was the 23rd night of Ramadan. The holiday of Eid al-Fitr, which marks the end of Ramadan and the beginning of Shawwal, the next lunar month, is declared after a crescent new moon has been sighted, or after completion of 30 days of fasting, if no sighting of the moon is possible. Eid celebrates the return to a more natural disposition, fitra, of eating, drinking, and marital intimacy. Once again, I hope you've learned something new about your fellow neighbor. I understand that it wasn't really relevant for Ramadan to be discussed during December of this year, but I felt it incredibly important to include our Muslim friends, as they often get feared for being different or the unknown. I think we should all remember that there are extremists in every faith, religion, group, cult, organization, whatever you want to call it, and they do not represent the majority of the peaceful members of that group. I think in the end, most of us just want to find peace, happiness, tranquility, and joy. And so I wish that upon you as we end today's podcast. Thank you for listening. I welcome you back anytime you may need to hear a comforting voice or a familiar bedtime story.